Welcome to this Forage College Explainer. Today, we're taking all those high-level DApp architectures we've been designing and, well, turning them into absolutely bulletproof engineering blueprints. If you've been following along with us, we've recently covered how to design data flows, consistency, and error handling. Now, we're going to take those theoretical concepts and apply them directly to the real world.
So, let's kick things off with a little dose of reality. You can have the most elegant, perfectly mapped out architecture in the world, but honestly, those designs are completely useless if a stale Oracle price slips through the cracks, drains your liquidity pool, and sets off that agonizing, soul-crushing PagerDuty alarm at 3 a.m. A broken promise in Web3 isn't just a tiny bug, it is a massive vulnerability. To make sure that doesn't happen, we're going to treat your DApp like a highly complex mechanical engine, mapping out every single gear and safety valve. Our agenda for this explainer covers the integration blueprint, mapping your integration points, validations, fallbacks, and escalations, a real-world price swaps example, machine-readable integration plans, and finally, testing and next steps. All right, Section 1, the integration blueprint, moving from design to safe implementation. Building on our previous discussions about data flows, it's really time to turn those theoretical invariants into a solid, concrete plan. The design phase is all about deciding what the system should do, right? But the integration blueprint, that's where we explicitly nail down exactly how we guarantee it does it safely. This blueprint is going to specify exactly where data enters and exits, which adapters enforce the rules, and crucially, how the system recovers when things inevitably break. It's basically translating all the promises your system makes, like idempotency guarantees or retry strategies, into a rigorous, actionable checklist that your engineers can actually build and test against. Moving right along to Section 2, mapping your integration points, defining the boundaries. To build this blueprint, the first thing we got to do is inventory all of our architecture components. We're talking wallet adapters, off-chain services, on-chain programs, Oracle adapters, the whole shebang, and figure out exactly where they interact. We call these interaction zones integration points. By definition, an integration point is a boundary where data or intent moves from one trust or consistency domain to another. Now, for every single one of these boundaries, you have to record the producer, the consumer, the data schema, non-functional constraints like latency, and your semantic invariants. And when you throw all of this into a table, those boundaries become crystal clear. Just look at the Oracle point here. The adapter provides data to the program, and it validates that the price age is strictly under 30 seconds. If that fails, the fallback is to use the last known price and immediately fire an alert. Having this laid out lets you prioritize your high-risk, high-frequency boundaries with much stricter validations and pre-approved fallbacks, while your lower-risk connections might, tolerate slightly looser checks. It really acts as a phenomenal communication tool for your entire engineering team. Let's jump into Section 3, validations, fallbacks, and escalations, safety valves and alarms. Listen, hope is not a strategy. Just hoping your data stays clean is absolutely not going to cut it. We have to convert those fluffy, high-level design invariants into hardcore executable checks. Take a classic invariant like duplicate events, for example. Sounds great on paper, but how on earth do you actually test that? Well, you translate it into a highly explicit validation requirement. Something like second execution is a no-op, and we log code dupe_01. Boom! Now that is a crystal clear pass or fail condition that QA can instantly assert using observable signals. But what actually happens when one of those validations fails? That's where you need to write down your operational contracts for fallbacks and escalations. Fallbacks can be automatic, like say tripping a circuit breaker for 60 seconds to completely reject new requests. Or they can be procedural, like manually switching over to a cached Oracle price when you see latency spiking. And if a human actually needs to step in, your escalation path has to name names. Who exactly gets paged, under what specific metric thresholds, and what exact runbook steps are they expected to take right then and there? Do not let the implementation phase hide these critical decisions. All right, Section 4, real-world example, price swaps, the blueprint in action. Let's actually trace a concrete multi-step flow. Imagine a user submitting a price-dependent swap request. Just look at how many domains we're crossing here. First, the front end sends assigned intent. Next, the back-end router jumps in to check gas and price spread. Third, the Oracle adapter supplies the external price. And finally, the on-chain program applies the core business logic. Every single boundary on this journey requires its own unique set of safety checks. The front end has to verify signatures and idempotency, the back end has to check transaction consistency, and the Oracle adapter absolutely must verify cryptographic proofs and data freshness. Let's zoom in on that back-end to on-chain step for a second. Let's say the back-end detects a massive deviation between its cached price and the Oracle's live price. What do? Well, instead of just blindly submitting the transaction and hoping for the best, the back-end fallback needs to instantly hold the transaction, surface a warning, and trigger these exact runbook steps. Number 1, check the Oracle latency metric. Number 2, verify recent price updates. And number 3, if both of those look anomalous, escalate straight to the risk lead with specific logs and request IDs. Of course, for us to actually trust this flow, we have to test it comprehensively. You absolutely must document essential acceptance test scenarios. You're testing the happy path, obviously, but you also need dedicated scenarios for that Oracle latency-induced hold we just talked about and for duplicate submission handling. These scenarios simulate the entire flow, literally from a crafted front-end request all the way down to the final on-chain outcome, just so your automated tests and your human reviewers can all agree that the observable signals perfectly match the expected state transitions. Moving on to Section 5, Machine-Readable Integration Plans, Code as Contract. Okay, this is where we separate the amateurs from the pros. Integration plans shouldn't just be some static Google Doc that gets lost in a shared drive. They need to be actual machine-readable code. To pull this off, we can use a TypeScript schema. A validation result simply returns a Boolean OK status and an array of reasons if it failed. Then you have your integration point interface, which maps out the exact fields from your inventory: the ID, producer, consumer, the data schema, an array of semantic invariants, specific metrics with their thresholds, and of course an array of fallbacks. Structuring it this way makes downstream automation a total breeze. And here we see a concrete instantiation for an Oracle integration point. By defining this as a constant Oracle price point, we are quite literally coding our blueprint. We're tying our semantic checks and metrics directly to observability signals. You can then take these exact fields and programmatically generate your monitoring dashboards or set up your alert rules. But you know what the best part is? By running deterministic checks against these machine-readable plans, your CI tests can automatically generate human-readable failure messages for your engineers. So if an integration point is missing a critical metric threshold, the CI pipeline catches it instantly. It outputs OK is false and lists the exact reasons why. This means the engineer can go in and fix the plan before they've even written a single line of actual application code. Finally, Section 6, Testing and Next Steps, Preparing for Action. Now that we've completely mapped out our engineering blueprint and turned it into machine-readable code, let's wrap this up with a few actionable takeaways so you're ready for implementation. Just keep these 3 practical principles in your back pocket. Number 1, make your integration points explicit and machine-readable for CI and QA. Number 2, tie every single validation to an observable signal and unambiguous pass and fail criteria. And number 3, document your fallbacks and escalations with incredibly concrete thresholds. Applying these 3 rules completely eliminates developer guesswork during implementation and ensures your acceptance testing is 100% deterministic. Because ultimately, clarity accelerates safe incident response. When things go wrong, and let's be real, in Web3, they eventually will go wrong, you do not want your team playing guessing games. You want minimal runbook actions and expected immediate behaviors fully mapped out beforehand. That's what makes your system's behavior totally predictable, even in the middle of a massive incident. So here's your homework. I want you to go and prepare 3 to 5 integration point entries from your current architecture. For every single one, make sure you include the ID, the producer, the consumer, semantic invariants, at least one metric, and a fallback action. Keep them machine-readable. JSON or YAML works totally fine, and run a simple local validator against them. In our next lesson, we're actually going to convert this focus set into fully automated integration tests. Thank you so much for joining this explainer created by Forge College. If you want to dive deeper into this and other advanced Web3 topics, definitely head over to forge.college today. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. If your dapp's primary oracle failed right this exact second, would your system elegantly recover through a well-documented fallback, or would you be the subject of tomorrow morning's worst headline?